everybody. And we are really happy to be able to do this together. Courtney from Mommastrong and Esther from Gokhale Method. And our goal today is to help you come to an increased understanding of pelvic floor, posture, movement, and we would like to uplift you and your pelvic floor to newer, better levels. Over to you, Courtney.
Thank you so much for doing this, Esther. I'm excited too to introduce this subject that's so needed to so many women. And I also want to say that, Esther, you were a big inspiration for me in starting Mommastrong. When I was in a lot of pain, I couldn't find anybody with solutions, and I came across you, and what you were teaching made a lot of sense, but also started me on the journey that today is Mommastrong. And today's Mommastrong's 6th anniversary, so I find it really, really, really wonderful to be speaking to you today. It's a big deal. So thank you.
Thank you too, because you're reaching an audience, young mamas, that is very dear to our heart. About half our teachers have joined our organization to make an impact on kids. And we have a really hard time reaching kids because they are overscheduled, because somehow the logistics are very difficult. And so to have people who are closer to that demographic like yourself is very exciting. So why don't you begin, Courtney, by telling us some of the issues you see in your group of mamas?
Okay, so there's 3 main things I see. There's a lot, but for today, the 3 main things I see, I'll start with the first one, which is that most women after they give birth, or even during pregnancy, have a tendency to move into what I call the hiding posture. And the hiding posture is when they start to hide their belly, they start to hide, pull into the fetal position a little bit, and that position changes the way that their body is functioning. So they go from a position of having nice curves in the spine to all of a sudden slightly tucking the hips under because they're all afraid of the belly. And so when that happens, it starts to change the dynamic of the muscles. And that means that instead of using all their stabilizing muscles to hold themselves upright in extension, they start to use their action muscles to support themselves, and that leads to more and more problems. The technical term that I see with most women in Mommastrong is synergistic dominance. And flipping that becomes really important so they can stand up tall and then get their bellies to work properly. But that hiding posture is so fascinating because I see it across the board, and it's not even that extreme. It's just a slight tuck of the tail, a slight pull forward of the shoulders, and then over time and repetitively it causes lots of problems, and they don't even know it's happening. And I think along with that, on a deeper layer, it has a lot to do with the negligence that most women experience after giving birth. And instead of thinking that, they're not getting enough support, women tend to blame themselves. And so I try to let them know, actually, you just haven't gotten the right information about how to strengthen your body after you give birth, and about how to pull the pelvis into the right position so that you feel more powerful and you are more integrated. So that's the first thing, is that fetal position, that scared position, that threatened position is the thing that I see happens quite a bit. Yeah. So the other thing that I see happen is that most women come into pregnancy with a hypertoned pelvic floor. And this is really shocking to them because most women have been told their whole life they need to do Kegels all the time, and they need to hold them and squeeze them as tight as they can. They think that their pelvic floor is like a bicep, where it needs to get stronger and tighter, and that information is terrible for the pelvic floor. And so I find that a lot of women come into pregnancy strong in the wrong ways, and we actually see women who are more athletic and more fit have higher rates of prolapse, incontinence, diastasis, and erecti, and that's pretty shocking for them because they think they're gonna pop back after they have a baby. And instead what happens is they have more injury and more long-term issues, all because this pelvic floor has been trained to be like a bicep. So what I try to teach them is that instead of that steel trap, they want to create a trampoline-like experience of the pelvic floor. So if they're doing a Kegel, they're holding it for a second and then they're learning to let it go. And most women cannot let the pelvic floor go. They've been taught for so long to hold and squeeze and tighten it up that letting it go feels scary to a lot of them. But that's actually what then starts to help them out quite a bit. The third thing I see is that most women, after they give birth, begin to change their exercise from fun and from experiential and from a hobby into how do I pummel my body back into some sort of shape that looks good. So they begin to exercise for appearance rather than for integration and just general movement. And that change seems to draw them into workouts that are less helpful for their healing. And also makes them start to develop all these shoulds about their exercise. I shouldn't do this, I shouldn't do that, I'm not supposed to do that, I need to do that. Instead of just moving and learning that through posture and proper breathing, that they can do anything they want to do. If they want to run a marathon, they want to hula, they want to, climb walls, whatever it is, they can get back to that. So it takes a little while for them to break free of the thinking that exercise is all about getting back to their old bodies or looking good, rather than thinking of like, okay, this is about integration and function.
That's wonderfully described, Courtney, because I see a very parallel situation in all age groups, but I often see people after, not well beyond pregnancy, where the motivations are a little different. The aging body, gravity does happen, and gravity will show up all the flaws in the system pretty unforgivingly. So if things were well stacked, then there wouldn't be a problem. After all, we've evolved within the field of gravity for how many million years, right? We've been upright, and gravity is our friend. That's who we evolved with. But because of the incorrect knowledge base, really is the main thing. And I want to show you a little bit what I consider to be the root of the problem. And here you see on the left a picture from an anatomy book published in Modern Times. And this shows the typical S-shaped spine that we think is the normal human spine. And on the right, you see a picture from an anatomy book published in 1911. Okay, and that is what I consider to be truly normal. So on the left, this is what we describe as an S-shaped spine. Every ergonomic chair, every car seat is designed to fit this curve. You have lumbar support somewhere here. And really what needs to happen, and I can argue it many, many ways, because this shape actually respects the discs and the nerves and the tissues in there, including the pelvic floor. Because in this position, with your behind out behind you, what you have underneath you supporting all of your pelvic organs is your pubic bone. And no matter what your age, your pubic bone is going to be just fine and holding everything up. But when you tuck even a little bit, now you're pushing it onto these Kegel muscles, the pubococcygeal muscles. And those are relatively weak and not made for the job. And like Courtney says, you're asked to do Kegels, and in older women, like, every time you go to the toilet, you're supposed to squeeze your Kegels and stop your flow of urine and this and that. And now they get tense. Then you have to go to the pelvic floor specialist to get them massaged. And then you tighten them, you loosen them, you tighten them, and it's dizzy making. It doesn't make any sense. You're stuck with a problem, a pelvic floor problem. And really what needs to happen is that the pubic bone needs to be under you like it used to be when you were a little kid. So we're not broadcasting something weird and woo-woo. It's what you used to have. It's what your ancestors used to have. Like you can see, I know he doesn't have any danger of uterine prolapse here, but still helps to have the pubic bone under all these pelvic organs rather than tuck the pelvis. You see it here too. Every indigenous population, every ancestral population, all kids share this J spine as opposed to the S spine. And there's also medical evidence showing that this correlates with less back problems. That J-spine is where it's at. Now, having said that, let me just share an MRI of mine. I came to this, well, let me get away from that for just a second. Now, I came to this the hard way with a huge problem. I used to be a gymnast. I used to be a yoga model in Bombay. And I used to, finish all my, with that flourish that you see in gymnasts. And, this is what we think of as good posture. And what I'm getting at is that we have a wrong model of how to go about posture. And this gets us in trouble in multiple ways. So it definitely got me in trouble. And I'm going to show you what sort of trouble it got me in. Now let me see. Yeah. So what you see here is my MRI from when I was in my mid-20s, and it is not a happy phase of my life. I had a huge L5-S1 disc herniation. It's shoving my spinal cord out of the way. And it started when I was 9 months pregnant, and it got worse and worse. And I was told, oh, maybe the baby's sitting on the nerve, it'll be fine. No, it wasn't fine. It got so bad that I couldn't sleep through the night. Every 2 hours I was getting up, walking around the block, trying to get rid of spasm, and nothing worked. Physical therapy, chiropractic, acupuncture, the works. Me checking my head. This enormous L5-S1 herniation was my problem. And you can see how there's not that much curve right in this locality. And there is too much curve up higher. Now, I would like to show you what I've done to solve my problem. And the best way for me to show you uses our little device that we've invented, the Gokhale Spine Tracker. So on my spine here, you can see these little sensors, okay? And the sensors speak to an app. And I dimmed it so you could kind of see it. And here you see the shape of my spine as I'm sitting. Now, the thing you will first notice is that it's very different from what my MRI showed previously. There's a lot of curve down low, and there's not that much, it's not S-y, it's much more J-y, okay? And I've marked, previous to this call, you can see I've marked this gray line. That's what I consider to be my current normal. Now I'll simulate what I used to do. This is what I used to do, okay? This is where I used to be, big sway. And there's a problem with that sway that is much more visceral than shows up in a couple of spine lines. And I will demonstrate that to you with this other part of our app. So here I'm sitting pretty well, and this is what's going on the inside of me. Now I'm going to simulate what happens when I go to my old posture. And that's the problem.
This is so cool.
It's cool. We have a lot of fun helping people get in touch with their insides. And so now the fix that people learn for this is to tuck their pelvis, okay? So this is what people are learning. They're learning that if you have a big sway like that, what you're supposed to do is super tuck your pelvis like that, okay? Now that messes up a whole bunch of things. It's not the right solution. It puts pressure on your pelvic floor is one of the problems. It messes up your hip joint. It messes up a lot of things, all of your discs in your lumbar spine. And I'm going to show you once again what the problem with that is. So back to my MRI, which was not so happy. So like this is the equivalent. If you tuck your pelvis, the guy on the right, you can see what happens to the rest of his body. He slumps forward, his head is forward. He's also inviting his organs to fall out of him. Even men have this problem, by the way, with hemorrhoids and rectal prolapse. They don't have as much to lose. We women suffer more from pelvic tuck. As you age, you got the risk of urinary incontinence and uterine prolapse, bladder prolapse, and so on. So, and then you see what happens to the neck. And that's just the physics of the building block stack. So what you really need is what this guy's doing, where your pelvis is anteverted. Now, the problem with teaching people is this is not a good first place to change. You don't want to begin with tipping your pelvis forward, sticking your butt back. That you could get into a lot of trouble starting like that. We like to start with length, but I'll save that for later. And so my main point is we've got the wrong ideas about how to improve posture. What constitutes correct posture? We're starting off with a bad model, S shape. And what we need is a paradigm shift. And this is what we in the Gokhale Method are doing. We consider that we have a breakthrough in back pain care, and it extends to other fields like pelvic floor dysfunction. Over to you, Courtney. Let's hear some solutions after all of this. What does work?
What's interesting, Esther, is that when I first started Mommastrong, like the rest of, I think, the fitness industry, when I'm dealing with all these women coming to me with abdominal concerns and wanting to get their bellies back, the first dive into this is to work right in their bellies, to really focus on their core. But as I've gone through that, thinking and tested it out, I found that that's not really the first place to start at all. I focus instead, I think, like what you're saying, is what's happening to the pelvis. Is the pelvis supported? Because if it's not supported, then there's no way they're going to be able to access the pelvic floor and begin to strengthen. I've kind of changed the way that I've designed the entry point for everybody. And I say, don't even try to work your pelvic floor, because when your pelvis is supported, the pelvic floor starts to work on its own. Your abdominals start to work beautifully on their own. And so for me, the first solution is actually having to do with their glutes. And when I work one-on-one with most women, I find that they suffer from gluteal amnesia, or the trendy way to call it is dead butt syndrome, which is where they think they're working their glutes, but they're actually not firing their glutes at all. Most women that come to me actually think that their glutes live down here. And so their working of the glutes is actually squeezing their butt cheeks together, and because of that, they're actually just working their hip flexors and other things and not even working the glutes. So the first step is saying, are your glutes awake? It's not about are they strong, but are they awake? And so what I like to describe to them about their glutes is I use this a bowl of fruit as an example, where I tell them that their pelvis is like a bowl of fruit, and it's front loaded because of all of our organs and things like that. And what most women do is that they learn to hold their pelvis just like they're holding the thumbs at the back of this fruit bowl. It doesn't work very well. And so the body has to figure out ways to hold the pelvis that are not very good, from the hamstrings to the hip flexors, all these things that then begin to put a lot of pressure downward. So then I say, what would happen if you were to hold this front-loaded bowl of fruit with both hands at the back? Now we have a much better system. And I say to them, that's what your glutes are. Your glutes are right up at the top of the iliac crest. You have 3 different bands that wrap around. And so instead of going here and using and trying to support this bowl of fruit by pulling down, instead it's all about how the glutes are acting like those hands to counterbalance the pelvis. And like you're saying, get their pubic bone underneath of them. I always tell them, and I've changed the language to be more inclusive, but I always tell them to imagine that they're dragging their pelvic forward. I say, your hoo-ha. I tell them to imagine that they're dragging it back slightly, not sticking their butt out, not doing anything like that, just kind of like they're tapping this back slightly to begin to get the glutes to work. Now, in order for them to feel it, the best solution I discovered is, tactile. They need to feel, they need to put their hands on their bums, and they need to feel whether they're working. And one of the great ways to do this is to sit on a stool, just like I'm doing now, and take a belt and place it around your legs so that when you're hip width apart, the belt is fairly tight. And then what I have them do from there is, while they're sitting in the stool in a nice stack posture like you teach, and I'll let you show that, with their chest lifted, all we're going to do is press their legs out into the band. While doing that, they're going to take their hands and they're going to place them at the back of the hips right here. So most women, again, think their butts are down low. I have them place their hands right underneath the back part of the pelvis and then press out into the band, just thinking of the thighs pushing into the band. And what they start to feel is that this back part, right in the glutes, starts to fire. And most women, it takes a minute because they're so used to sitting back here, like you were showing that guy, that when they press out, they're only working the front of the hips. So I shift them forward, have them sit on their sits bones, and then press straight out to the side. And then what happens from there is they start to feel that. Then I have them get up and get on a mat, and with the band still there, I have them go into a really gentle body squat, where they start first by pushing their pelvis back, the pubic bone back slightly, and then bending the knees into a 45-degree angle. Very small, not a full squat. So the first step is pubic bone back, then bending the knees into this position, and their spine is long. They're not trying to arch or do anything else. They're imagining their spine is like a long plank with the pelvis back. They hold that position and press out gently into the thighs, and then I have them do a move called crab walks, where they walk side to side, making sure the feet are laying flat and their heels are dropping through the ground, and they go side to side, holding that posture, making sure that the pubic bone is always dropping behind them. And they do this, and what happens with another repetition, side to side, is they start to feel these muscles starting to kick in. And that is the first step. Once they wake up,
we have another way to do a similar task, because I agree with Courtney that it really, a lot of the responsibility is in the glutes to maintain the pelvis in a healthy position. And the piece that we like to add to the picture for people, because most of our people, like moms, are busy. They're, the people I work with are often busy with taking care of their kids, as well as taking care of the older generation. And then they have a full-time job, and then community service is on their radar, and they are really having to step up, and there aren't enough hours of the day. So the Gokhale Method is a lot about how to use your everyday life as your exercise and your therapy. So an example of this is you relearn how to walk. And one of the things you learn in walking is how to activate your glutes with every step you take. So if your pelvis is tucked, nothing much is happening. It becomes kind of flabby, and with age it gets sadder and saggier, and you can see any of this in old age homes, for example. And it's not just that it doesn't look so beautiful in a bikini, but it's also that then you lose balance, and you lose your natural cushion and your natural wedge, and you're missing out on a natural weight loss technique, which is burning your calories as you use your muscles, and so on. So this activation, you can see my glute med is working right there. It lifts the buttock up, okay? And you want that to happen with every step. So every step is a rep. But it takes a little bit of training to get there. And this is the training that we have 60 teachers around the world, and they teach a course. And this is but even in our open free workshop, we often include activating gluteus medius. And we like to focus on gluteus medius, because if you find that muscle, then the others are probably working as well. So we check in on glute med and look for it in every step we take. And now if you're active and you do maybe 10,000 steps a day, you got 5,000 reps taken care of just in your life without having to take an extra minute out. It takes no longer to walk well than it does to walk poorly. Back to you, Courtney.
I love that. It's funny, when I teach the glute thing, I use, just like you just did, I use my own body to show what it looks like when you're using the glute med, because you can see it and it changes so quickly. So just what you showed, it's so great. And when people see that visual of how the glutes actually lift up and hold you like that, it's incredible. So I appreciate that. So the next one that I focus on and I see, and I know you have a different way of teaching this, which I'm so excited to see, is how to really activate the pelvic floor. So like we said in the problems, most women come in having done this like sucking in thing for so long, that when I have them actually use their abdominals, what happens is they're either using their obliques or they're tucking the hips under, just using the rectus abdominis or just using the hip flexors, because they have all this information that told them that abdominal work happens here. So the first step for me of teaching some of these women hands-on, and then like you said, I had a man come in yesterday actually who had never worked his transverse the right way and had never learned how to use his abdominals properly. Anyway, so what I do is I start with them learning that actual activation of their abdominals is very gentle at first, and it has to happen without the spine changing shape. So most of them are so used to pressing the belly to the spine or pressing their back flat to the mat that they change their entire pelvis and they're actually not working their abdominals at all. And so the first way that I teach them is actually by having them down on all fours. And for most women, this feels good because it takes the pressure off anything you're feeling. And they go down to all fours. If they have shoulder issues, I have them come down into this position right here. But in all fours, I have them place a ball or a bag of rice or something right in the center of their back, and they hold a neutral spine. I teach them to lift the sternum forward slightly and tuck the chin, like they watch their kids sitting with a long neck. And then from here, I have them take just a gentle breath into the belly. And then I have them press the belly to the spine at about 20 or 30% effort only. And do that without moving the ball or the thing on the back. Most women, when they do this, immediately go here, ball drops off. And so what I have them do is practice over and over doing this, keeping a very neutral pelvis, a very long spine, and pressing the belly to the spine without moving the spine or the ball at all. And what they end up finding at that point is that they've been doing too much all along. After they learn how to just do that, then I have them activate, a basic Kegel that isn't held, and I teach them that Kegel, instead of being something they squeeze, is something that needs to go up the body like an elevator. So
I love your ball on the back exercise. That's brilliant, Courtney.
Yeah,
that's very, very immediate feedback, whether you're tucking or not. Right. So yeah, we have 4 layers of muscles in the abs, and the focus tends to be on rectus abdominis, this most superficial layer. And we tend to do that. Most people do crunches. Sit-ups, thankfully, are thrown out of most people's regimen. Yes. Crunches are on their way. They've, like the Canadian Air Force has thrown them out, and they're on their way out because it focuses on just rectus abdominis. And that is the least important of the 4 layers of muscles you have for architectural support. So you want to focus on the internal obliques, the external obliques, the transverses. And once again, in the Gokhale method, we like to do this as part of everyday activities. So if you're carrying your kid or your grandkid or your friend's kid, which would be wonderful to have more often, or your grocery bags, then there's a way for you to get taller without changing the shape of your back, okay? So there are many ways to do this, and one way is to breathe in. And if you've got instead of arching like I used to, you figured out how to anchor your rib cage, and now you go tall and slender as you breathe in. So there's a way to make yourself get tall and then fill in the blanks with muscle deep in your belly that is not rectus. See, rectus does this, and it actually makes you look kind of poochy if you have anything to spare, which these days, having spent a little too much time behind the computer, I do. And but it's on its way out. Spring is here, getting active. And so you want to engage these deeper abdominal muscles, internal obliques, external obliques, transverses, so to make you taller, slenderer, incidentally more beautiful, and much more protected. And that's what you do while you are carrying your suitcases, carrying your kid, carrying anything, going for a jog where there's impact. That would be the natural time to use those muscles. And then, of course, you're strengthening them. That's your workout in large part. Back to you, Courtney.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. So the last solution that I have for women kind of goes against I'm obviously in the fitness industry, and I obviously have a fitness company. But the last piece of the solution for me is breaking women free of this idea that there's a certain way they need to exercise, and that exercise or movement is about how they're going to look. And so what I always say is like, look, it's my job to help teach you about your body so you can be integrated, but I'll never use the word, you can't do that, you can't do that. My job is to help you be so integrated that you can carry a kid on one hip and not hurt yourself. You can be maternal and hold your kid in the middle of the night and breastfeed them without being injured. Whereas most physicians or people I've talked to really tell women, you can't bend over, you can't hold your kid on one side, hold them on. It's like we're moving dysfunctionally and unpredictably as mothers. So my job is to help integrate them so their body can do that, which I believe it can if it's stable and supported. So what I really like to say to women is the main solution is to get back to moving in the way you enjoy. And if you're doing something that you love, maybe as a kid you were a dancer, or maybe as a kid you love to hike, why don't we focus on that? That thing's gonna make them feel alive, it's gonna remind them of who they are, it's gonna keep them out of that container of motherhood that feels very trapping, and it's gonna allow them to then be motivated to be active again. And if that's the focus, and they're getting the right information from people like you and I, then they can really do anything they want. But they have to be willing to break out of the mold and all of the fitness challenges out there, and all the glossy pictures and before and afters, and be really smart and be really investigative about what is working, what makes sense, and what's going to help me free up to do the things I love to do, rather than fit into the box of fitness. So I always tell them, like, the number one thing is to get back to the movement you love that makes you feel free, that reminds you of who you are, and then let's support that with real information about your anatomy, and let go of the fitness stuff. Just walk away from it. So it's an odd solution coming from somebody in the fitness industry, but that is 100% to me the solution.
I couldn't have said it better, Courtney. It's so much, like when it's about joy and connection with your body and connection with your family and with your community, it's sustainable. If it's about discipline and, like muscling through that extra, then you're a little bit vulnerable to not sustain it. After a while, it gets boring. Maybe it gets tiring. You get busy, whatever. It's really easy to lose it. So, it always amuses me that people, my book has this much about everyday life stuff, and then tucked away in the back, I'm not even there yet, it's still more in the back than right here, it begins with exercises, okay? That's this much of the book is exercises, this much is about how you do everyday life. And people still come to me and say, which I really like the exercises you showed in the back of it. I'm thinking, really? That was like an afterthought. It's really the front part of the book, which is how you sit and how you stand and how you transform your body in everyday life, like while you're lying down and standing and bending and so on. That's the real bulk of the exercise in my view. And then if you want, and I also believe in ramping it up, I want to make a special plug for dancing, especially for mamas, but anyone really, because you're doing so many things at the same time. You're doing something, stretch, strengthen, move, connecting with your family. You don't have to go off and sit and be in a special enclosure to do this. You can be with your kids. You invite your kids to join. Good for them. Pattern their brain with rhythm and musical elements, and you're connecting, and we don't have time in the day to have alone time and kid time and couple time and community time. It doesn't add up. And so here with dance, you get to do it all. Plus you get a 72% reduction in your chance of getting dementia. How about that for a motivator?
72%? Are you serious?
Published in Lancet magazine. No slough of a medical journal. It is the best way to keep your neural pathways alive and kicking, and and you're getting all these other benefits all at once. So I especially like dancing. I am going to set an example by just being silly, but inviting you and trying to show you how we could be doing, even in a formal, well, kind of formal thing like this, we could be enjoying ourselves. We could be standing up, and we would love this to be just part of what would happen. You know, why not? Look, my is a little old. He would dance differently, but he could still dance. And that's part of the magic of dance, is you can do it at any age. You're never going to be too injured to dance. You can dance in a wheelchair. You can. So I do have a favorite activity, you can tell, but really anything that you enjoy, imbued with this postural wisdom, becomes an amazing and sustainable exercise. Over to you, Courtney.
I think we handle problems and solutions really well, and I think we can move into the Q&A part. But before we do that, I want you and me to be able to just share where people can find us or anything we have coming up. For me, people can find me at mommastrong.com. It's MOMMA strong.com, and we have an incredible tour that's launching next week. In New York City, and we're going to 9 cities, and it's called the Cheeky Tour, and it's all about your butt. So I'm going to be hands-on with women around the country, teaching them how to wake up their glutes and enjoy that process. So you can check out the website, mommastrong.com/cheeky, and find your spot. But other than that, you can sign up for memberships with me for only $2, so that's a good deal. That's where people can find me. And again, thank you so much, Esther. As I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm just like filled with this. It's a beautiful world, and to get to speak to you is it's such a great moment. So thank you.
Thank you, Courtney, because you are the beacon bringing this forward into new and expanded worlds and doing it so gracefully. And if you would like to have more information or connection with us at the Gokhale Method, there's a link in the section below that allows you to connect with us through our newsletter. You'll have to double opt in, so you sign up and then you get something in your news email, and then you click, and then you will hear from us all the very many things we have. We don't bombard you, but we have things in different locales. So if there's something coming to your geography, then you will hear about it. We have teachers all over, and lots of offerings like this one, and there'll be plenty more. So delightful connecting with all of you, and look forward to another time. Yes. Bye, Courtney.
All right, thanks so much, Esther. Have a good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.